and welcome back to the TEA Chapter Chat. My name is Emily Burds, and I'm your host today as we dive into the 2023 National Conference recap. And so today I am thrilled to be joined by a group of members from the Iowa and Nebraska chapter who attended this year's National Conference. And so I'd love to just have them introduce themselves. And Jamie, I'll start with you.
Okay. I'm Jamie Hine. I work for ESP International. I am the 2022 recipient of the Iowa Nebraska Chapter Employee Owner of the Year. And this is actually my very first year going to National Conference.
Awesome. Sam, introduce yourself.
I'm Sam Mintel. I'm an employee owner at Right Service Corp. Also serve on the executive committee for the Iowa Nebraska chapter, and I believe this was my third or fourth national conference in DC. I have to go back a little bit.
Nice. All right, Ms. Chris.
Hi, I am Chris Paxson. I am an executive member of the Iowa Nebraska chapter, and I work as an employee owner at LBS. We were honored to receive the Employee-Owned Company of the Year award this year, so that was a great honor for us. And this was my first year attending the national conference.
Awesome. And rounding us out, Scott.
Hey, I'm Scott Storney-Hahn with Great Bank Trust Company. We're an institutional trustee, so we're an ESOP professional. And boy, I had to sit and think about this a little bit, how many years I've been going. It's been at least 18 years I've been going out to DC.
Scott, balancing us out. I love it. I love it. And I was fortunate enough to attend on behalf of Razor Holdings, the company that I work for as marketing coordinator, and this was my second year going. So a little bit of a nice mix here we've got. And so I'd love to just kick us off and kind of, especially with our newbies, Chris and Jamie, what were your expectations going in, and how did the conference kind of meet those, exceed those? Kind of what was your overall experience? And Jamie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I was nervous. I don't know if you guys know this, but I had never flown on a plane before, and I had never traveled outside of the Midwest. It was my first time in DC. It was my first time on a plane. It was my first time going to this conference. I was potentially up for another award. So to say nerves were in play is an understatement. I was so nervous, but I was really excited. And I know, like, the several conferences that I've gone to, I just come away feeling so refreshed from an ESOP standpoint, and getting the chance to talk to other people that are in the ESOP and are going through the same things we're going through, keeping people engaged and trying to get people excited about the ESOP. And it was a lot of nerves, but a lot of excitement. And I took a lot of notes and just felt really excited again about the ESOP after coming back. So.
Absolutely. We do have to shout out Jamie here because, like we said, she was our 2022 Employee Owner of the Year for the chapter, and she was one of the top 3 finalists for the National Employer of the Year. So we were thrilled to have Jamie in attendance with us, representing the chapter in that way, and we think she's just the bomb.com. So love it. Yeah. Chris, I'd love to hear from you as a first-time attendee and as someone who's really gotten engaged in the ESOP stuff in the last couple of years and now as an officer. What was the experience like for you?
I always look forward to attending the ESOP conferences, and I have been attending them since we became an ESOP in 2014, but I've never had an opportunity to attend national. And one of the things two things that I was intrigued about. One was the Advocacy Academy. That was the day and a half before. Mm-hmm. I was really intrigued about what that was going to be like. So I was excited to attend that. And then the conferences themselves is always a wonderful time to reconnect with people that you've met throughout the conferences. It's kind of like a little family reunion, so to speak. You get to reconnect, you get to see people that you don't see on a regular basis. And every conference that I've ever attended, this one included, I have found everybody to be more than open and receptive and willing to share thoughts and ideas on how to make your personal ESOP better. And as the founding member of our internal ESOP communication committee, I'm always looking for those new ideas to bring back for our employee owners, and this conference did not disappoint.
Awesome. Sam, Scott, anything to add from your perspectives having gone in the past? Was this year kind of any different? What was kind of exciting this year, and what was your overall experience of the week? Scott, we'll start with you.
Well, I would say my expectations going in are probably a little bit different than the rest of the group that's here, just because I've been going for a while, and also because I'm an ESOP professional. So whereas a lot of companies go out there and they expect to pick up a lot of education, that's really secondarily or even farther down the list for me. So my expectations are, when I go out there, Advocacy Academy, this was the third year I've attended that, and it's a great event. I've gone up on the Hill before, and you really didn't have any guidance or anything. You just were, hey, go up and see your representative or your senator. Now they do a great job giving you expectations, how you should run a good meeting. And what I've seen is it's much more productive when you go up on the Hill. So that is fun, doing that portion of it. And then for me, probably the biggest thing is networking, because I go back to maybe what Chris said is it is like a family reunion. So a lot of my best friends are in the industry, and I get to see them at the conferences. And for me as a professional, I'm usually going from like 7 a.m. till 10 midnight every day, with meetings and whatever. So it's exciting going out, but then I also know it's a lot of work too.
You never know where Scott is when you're at a conference. He's always on the go, always on the go. Sam, we'll end with you on this topic.
Well, I would probably echo what Scott said about the Advocacy Academy. I've also done it every year since they've started putting that on, and they've really improved it over the years. The first year was kind of their first go at it. Last year they expanded it and had a couple tracks, which was really nice. And then this year, just continue to improve. And I think they do a great job of preparing everybody, like Scott said, to go up on the Hill. So that was always fun. I would agree. I think the meetings are much more productive. I think we gained a little more traction. I don't want to skip ahead too much to your next topic, but gained some traction and met with more of our representatives this time around. So, and as far as the conference goes, you're always looking to meet people, to gain those ideas. I tried to focus the sessions that I went to this time a little more on stretching myself a little bit on the fundamentals and some of the more technical side of things. So all around good experience.
Nice. Well, yes, and I think a perfect segue into, like we talked about, the Advocacy Academy and our Hill visits. And, those of us who were there, which included myself, Chris, Scott, and Sam here, got to participate in those with the Academy and the Capitol Hill Visit Day on Wednesday. Again, I thought a nice condensed version of what they've done previously for those of us who've been in it before. They really hit the ground running and made sure we knew what was about. What did you guys think of the Academy itself? And Chris, especially you, did you feel like you got out of it what you were hoping for as a first-time attendee?
Yes, for me, I had been to another meeting in Washington, D.C., and we had an opportunity to go up on the Hill, and it was just wandering around and knocking on doors and going in. And I was nervous doing that. Attending the Academy this year through that half-day session allowed us to really have some structure and know that, the association had already scheduled appointments for you. So you weren't just going to knock on a door. Maybe somebody would be there or they wouldn't. So I appreciated the effort that they put into that to have those prearranged meetings and times for us. But then they also gave us beautiful handouts that explain what we were asking for. And what I learned when going into every office that we went into, every representative, senator, congressman, they were like, oh yeah, we love ESOPs. They're great. So it was easy easy asks on our part. And they gave us a really nice structure. Go in, introduce yourself, share a story, and then ask for the 3 things that are important to us as an association. And so that made it very structured and took away a lot of my nerves. So I really enjoyed that. One fun story I'm going to share, when you talk about advocacy and making an impact or making a difference, we had a session with Zach Nunn. So we went into his office, we met with him, wonderful meeting. We had a little photo op, we left, the day was over. We're having dinner at the end of the day, late at night. Myself and 2 colleagues that went to the same office and visited him. We're standing on a curb waiting for an Uber, and somebody taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around and it's Zach Nunn. He's like, "Hey, there's my Iowa girls." So I just love the fact that, he remembered us. He did not have to stop and say hi again, but that personal connection that you're making with those representatives, I said, really was a fun thing. So I kind of felt like we had a little, brush your elbows with some celebrities there. So it was fun.
Yes, a lot of great meetings had by, those of us in attendance. I think we had 10 or 11 from Iowa, out and about on Wednesday at the Hill visits, which I think was the strongest showing of any state, as we always do. We kind of took over there, and divided and conquered, which was great. And yeah, I think this year we got to do even more storytelling than last year. And I think those of us who attended in the past, last year we were really pushing for the wins that we ended up getting in, Secure 2.0 at the end of the year. And so this year really was about the follow-up and the follow-through on that. So, not as big of a, hard hit, but a little bit more, time to kind of really get into the details and the storytelling and the personal stuff. Scott, Sam, what were your experiences like on the Hill this year, and what did you think of the overall day and impact?
Yeah, well, number one, I always encourage everybody, take advantage of it. Go up on the Hill sometime. I started out, same spot that you guys were, little nervous, hesitant to go up there, what's this going to look like? And our chapter does a great job pulling a larger group together, as you mentioned. And, if you're a new person, when you go up, really about the only thing you have to do is just say who you are, introduce yourself, and then let somebody else, carry the message. So I've done that over the years, where I stood in the back, at the very beginning, and now will, carry portion of the message. So I highly encourage everybody to do it. It is a great experience. And I think all of you guys will say that it's not nearly as bad, once you go up there. You find out, hey, they're normal people just like us, and, it is kind of fun. The only thing that, to me, is always a little bit of a disappointment is if you don't get to see the senator or the representative and you end up seeing some staffers. You always want to see, our elected officials, but still, it is fun to be part of the government process.
But, we did get, talking about staffers, we did get a couple of the staffers to the congressional reception afterwards that the association put on there. And I thought that was really fun when they came up afterwards and said, hey, thanks for the invite. We came down. And I think at that, we got to see Senator Moran and Senator Sanders both give some comments on their support for ESOPs and employee ownership, which I also thought was an added bonus. I don't think with the association having it at the congressional offices like they did this year seemed to be a real win. I don't know that they've done that in the past. In the years I've gone, it's always been at the association's headquarters. So I thought that was a great idea. I hope they continue to do that, because it just continued that engagement, into the evening, I thought.
Absolutely. I think I about keeled over when I saw Representative Miller Meek's staffers walking in, who, we had somehow managed to win over earlier in the day after, a rough start last year. And so that, again, shows the impact of the personal connections and what we can do, because we ended up having, I think a half-hour conversation with them with the three of those young men working for her, and ended up making some great connections there. And I saw quite a few staffers as I walked through the event from other offices. So clearly, the location worked, the timing worked this year. And so, I was really glad that we were able to make that impact. Certainly. I think it was a great impact for the day. And we covered a lot of ground. We got to see both Senator Ernst and Senator Grassley in person. Which, they always, welcome us. And so that was great to see them both. I think had some nice coverage. And I think the Nebraska folks got in a few great visits as well, which is always good. Shout out to Kathy Maddox and her team at Commonwealth who were in attendance to represent on that. I think, it really kicked off a great rest of the week, because then, we headed right into the conference itself, right? And so I'd love to hear from you guys as we think back on the conference. What kind of were your favorite sessions, or kind of your biggest takeaways from that portion of the week? And Jamie, you got to show up and hit the ground running with that. You were a little fresher on that than the rest of us who've been there all week. So we'll start with you. What was your kind of overall favorite sessions and takeaways?
Yeah, I very much am on like the communications type of track, and attended a lot of those conversations, as well as a couple of the chapter showcases. And one of the ones that really stuck out to me was one of the chapter showcases. The gentleman that presented was basically like, how do you talk to each generation of workers that are not only already in the workforce, but are coming in and are slowly starting to creep in. And I really enjoyed that one, just with, like, everybody's motivated differently, and the ESOP allows different motivations to take place. And a lot of insight into how, talking to different people, every single person obviously is different, and especially across the generational gap, it can be really hard to have the same conversation with three different people from three different generations and get the same outcome. So really enjoyed that. And just overall, just that kind of conversation of how do you talk to the people that you work with, and how do you get people excited for the ESOP. And as I believe Jason, I believe his name is, as he always says, is everybody drinking the Kool-Aid? So that was kind of the track that I was on, was how do you get people engaged, and how do you get that communication going. So yeah.
Love it. You stole my favorite one too. Nicely done. Chris, how about you?
There were so many that I attended that I, looking back through my notes kind of to refresh my memory from being in the conference, I have takeaways from everything. I have things highlighted that I want to incorporate. And one of the sessions that, because there are so many competing sessions, you can't attend them simultaneously. Mm-hmm. I attended one session, but I knew that there was another session I really wanted to watch. So I literally watched the recap after the conference. Mm-hmm. And this one, I think, kind of really resonated with me. It was the ESOP Company Governance 101, Who Does What? And I've been in ESOP since 2014. I've been a part of it. I know that we have shareholders and a board and officers and management team, but the presenters for this conference really gave us some nice, I don't want to call them flowcharts, but nice little flowcharts to say, here's what each group does, and here's the role and the responsibilities. I really found that valuable, and I intend to use this information and kind of steal and modify their little charts to help educate our internal employee owners as well. So that was one that I actually caught after the conference that really, I thought had some really valuable information. So that would be mine, I think, probably one of my favorites.
Love that. Love that. Sam, what about you?
Well, that was my favorite. The ESOP 101 was what I had, looking back through notes, and that was, I felt the same way as Chris. You hear all these terms and these people and what are their roles and responsibilities. So that deep dive into that was probably the best actual session for me. I did really enjoy the speakers that the association had either at breakfast or at lunch.
Mm.
Specifically, the two journalists that they had, one was, from the Republican side, one from the Democratic side, Paul Bagala and Bill Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Their conversation, I thought, was really insightful and enlightening. I think, there was a couple comments that I had as takeaways on that, and their perspective on how politics has evolved over the course of their careers in the last 30 years was really interesting to me.
Yes, they had some fascinating keynote speakers this year, certainly. Scott, anything to add on that front?
I don't go to as many sessions as you guys do, mainly just because I've got a lot of other meetings going on the side. But the one thing that seems to be a hot button issue with a lot of companies is corporate governance. And, how does the board work with the management team, with the trustee? I spoke on a session that addressed this, but also caught some other sessions too. So that's one of the focus portions of this conference is corporate governance. Culture and communication is another big one at the DC conference too. So they do a great job there. There's great speakers that come in, speakers that we may see at, maybe the Midwest conference or maybe even locally, but yet we get to see individuals from all across the U.S. presenting on their specialties. So overall, I thought the session contents were very good. The agenda was very good. And again, I always encourage people, before you go out to the conference, take a look at the agenda and look and see what's going to spark your interest, get those lined up. And then, let's just say you've got 3 or 4 people from ESP, LBS, right, whoever it may be, go in, split up, don't have everybody go to the same session, split up, go hit different ones, because that way you can go in, you can cover ground, and then you can compare notes coming back. And then I think I heard it twice already from this group is, a lot of great ideas, bring them back. There's a lot of great ideas that you can bring back, but I always say pick 3 out of each conference and work to implement those, over the upcoming year, because then the next conference, you're going to get another 3. And then over time, you're going to build those up and, make your organization better.
Absolutely. Love that. Great advice from Scott there. And yeah, at Razor, we were lucky enough to have 4 of us attending, but we really did have to divide and conquer. So there was certainly a meeting going into DC of like who's going to what. And we really pushed our newbies who came with us to, branch out. And, we were like, we have to do it, ladies. We got to cover the bases here because, we're representing, and we wanted to bring back as much as possible for the team. And so, I think all great takeaways here. And I think that the thing that I took away, the biggest thing was certainly, that the sharing, there wasn't much sessions that people weren't more than willing to share their materials, share their ideas. I got to sit in a session talking about creating an ESOP university, which is something that, we're looking into at Razor and working on. And those ladies are like, we understand that there's over 100 slides. We promise we're not going through every one of them, but we're giving them all to you so you can copy and paste and do whatever you like with the information for yourself. And I was like, I love you. Thank you. But they were kind enough to put that all together for us and more than happy to share. And I think that was just a great epitome of what the ESOP community is really all about, is that sharing and caring and giving. And so I saw so much of that in DC, which was so great. Any other big takeaways or kind of big things you want to share, or that you think that our membership in the chapter would like to know about?
I just wanted to comment that we actually did the same thing that Razor did. We had a pre-meeting to the conference and went through the agenda and said, okay, who's going to go to what? And we've actually done that so far for every conference I've attended, because we are after as much information as possible. When we went to Midwest last year, 6 of us got to go, and so there was some overlap, but we tried to spread out as far as possible, just to retain as much of that information as we could. So it's funny that you guys had mentioned that, because yeah, we've been doing that for a while. Just to make sure we get as much as we can. Yeah.
It's a necessity almost when you
Yeah.
have so much great content, right? I mean, you just
Yeah.
got to divide and conquer and then bring it all back home,
Yeah.
right? And so, and we were lucky enough to do that and be able to share some of that with our employee owners, which is always great. And like Scott said, you can't jump on everything because, you get energized, like you said, Jamie, after you leave these conferences.
Yep.
So you want to do everything. You can't jump on all of it. So you got to kind of, organize, condense, prioritize. So always good to remember. And so I love this conversation, and I love that we're talking about the conference itself, because I kind of want to wrap up here talking about, why conferences like this are important and why representation from the chapter is important. Obviously, we very rarely have a problem showing up when it comes to these things. With the Iowa and Nebraska chapter, we show up strong, but I think it's important to remind folks, especially new members and people, who maybe are looking to get more engaged in the chapter, why conferences like this are important and what the benefits can be. And so, Sam, I'd love to hear from you, especially as a chapter officer, what you think the answer is here.
Well, I think these conferences are important, not only for the educational aspect, because the ESOP community is very much a sharing community, and everybody has a lot of great ideas to share. And I think I think ESP Jeff Mounts gave me the R&D ripoff and duplicate. So it's a great opportunity to do that, especially from the communications and culture standpoint. To Scott's point, networking, they're great opportunities to meet all of your fellow employee owners across the country, or if it's a regional event across the region. So I think that's really important. I think it's important to keep new members and getting them involved and engaged when we look at, succession of your committees and your ESOP in general. So I think that'd be the biggest takeaways for me.
Yeah. Scott, I'd love to hear from you. Why should companies be sending representatives to conferences like this? Why is this an important investment for them to make?
Well, I would say it's always important to go, because we kind of get into groupthink. When you're working within your own walls, you got your communication committee or your ESOP committee or whatever it may be, and you kind of tend to come up with the same ideas all the time. But when you get to the conference, you get to hear different ideas, different ways of going about doing things. And, even though you may be sitting in a session, really picking up information outside the session, you run into somebody in between sessions, or, sitting around at one of the meals or whatever, that's where you really pick up a lot of the, great ideas too. Because I can't remember if it was Sam or Chris, somebody said something, everybody's more than willing to share their thoughts and ideas. You don't see that in most conferences and most industries, because, you want to hold your good ideas close to the vest. You don't want to share them. But in the ESOP world, everybody wants to do that. Plus, they'll also tell you, hey, we tried this and it did not work. They're more than willing to tell you that too. But I'm going to go off script just a little bit, Emily, just real quick. One of the other favorite things of mine with the DC conference, and this is unique to the DC conference, it's the awards that we have. So there's the award luncheon on Thursday, where we go in, we have the opportunity to recognize the best of the best. And number one, just being chosen from your chapter, so Jamie and LBS, that's quite an accomplishment right there. We had some really great submissions this year. But then you go to the national level, and then, you're up against the best nationwide. Jamie to make finalist, that's a huge compliment there. Even though you didn't win, we were all cheering for you. That's a huge accomplishment. And then for LBS, I know a number of the judges that were looking at it, they were actually in the top 5 and didn't get selected. And they said that in maybe at least 50% to 2/3 of the other years, LBS probably would have won. That's how deep and strong the submissions were this year. So getting to cheer on our own people, even though we didn't have as many major awards as we did the year before, it was still a lot of fun to see the group there. And then to top it off, getting our picture taken up on the stage, our entire group that was there cheering everybody on. That to me is fun. And then also it's getting together at the Dubliner, after a long day on the Hill, we get to trade stories and see how everything went. So that's the fun part.
Absolutely. I love how we all have to go to DC to all hang out together, but
Yeah.
I'm glad we did. I'm glad we did. Absolutely. No, yes, absolutely. And we can't win them all, Scott. We've been winning for a while.
We can try.
I tried.
Yeah.
You tried and you deserved it, Jamie. Come on now.
The thing is, we do have a reputation now. In the past, we were just kind of sat in the sidelines, but we have a lot of leadership roles now coming out of the chapter. We have a lot of, success winning awards, so we're not known anymore as, just that little chapter in the Midwest. We're actually known as the leaders, within the ESOP industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chris, I'd love to hear from you, as a first-time attendee and representing LBS on your own, why was it important for you to be here? Why is it important for conferences like this and your attendance?
I wish I had other people who were able to travel with me, because to all the conversations earlier, there's so much information, and to divide and conquer as a single person, you can't do that. So unfortunately, we just didn't work out with everybody's schedules here, but I think the importance of them, and we've talked about it before, is the sharing. If you have a conversation with someone you've never met before, tell me about your ESOP, all of a sudden something will come up and you'll be like, oh my gosh, we have that same thing going on in our company. Here's how we think we're going to address it. And then the next person says, well, here's how we're going to address it. So the sessions are valuable. The speakers are wonderful. But to Scott's point, too, it's those interactions and that networking. Just have a conversation if you're having any issues whatsoever with your ESOP. And the other thing is, you say we're all in ESOP, but there's so much to know and to learn in the intricacies of an ESOP. And as an ESOP, as your company matures, we're approaching our 10th year. So I know we're going to have some new diversification situations coming up that have never been anything we need to educate about before. So these conferences are the continual education as you grow and mature as an ESOP. One of the things that we do, and unfortunately it didn't work here in DC, is we open it up to our entire company and say, if you want to attend a conference, raise your hand, let us know. We'll try to get you to a conference, whether it's a Midwest or local, or even a networking event here in town. And we actually have a waiting list right now of employee owners who are like, I want to go, because we can educate to this degree, whatever that might be. But if they immerse themselves for a day or 2 days, they come back. And I think it was Jamie that shared, drink the Kool-Aid. They drank the Kool-Aid for 2 days, and they're now talking to 10 and 20 colleagues that maybe I don't see on a regular basis. So it's a really wonderful opportunity for our employee owners. And that's why we try from the LBS side to have at least multiple individuals at every conference for that exact reason. So yeah, I think they are invaluable. Our membership in the association was one of the best things we did once we became an ESOP, because you can't figure this out on your own. You need that ESOP community.
Well said, Chris. Well said. And Jamie, we'll wrap it up with you. ESP's always kind of showed up strong to these events. Why is it important for ESP to invest, and why do you guys show up when it comes to these conferences?
Yeah, we've been 100% employee owned since 2012. But before that, we were 20% since 1999. And I started here at ESP in 2014, and I didn't even know what an ESOP was when I first started. I had heard about the position that I had started in from a friend of mine who said, hey, it's a really cool place. You should go work there. And I got here and they're like, oh, yeah, we're an ESOP. And I'm like, what's an ESOP? And they're like, oh, it's really cool. And as I've gotten more and more involved in the chapter itself and the ESOP itself, it gives you such a sense of pride and ownership to say, hey, like, this is what I do every day, but I'm also a part of something bigger. And to be able to go to events and conferences and meet people that are part of their own ESOPs, but have those same feelings that you do of wanting to empower the people that they work with and help grow the company and the people that are there. I think that just adds such an extra level to the things that you bring back to your company and the things that you do day in, day out. I refer back to my notes from even previous conferences regularly. Chelsea Blue and I just had a conversation the other day, and I pulled out my conference notes and I said, yeah, this is what we were talking about the other day, and I was showing her the statistic I was recalling from it. So it's really nice to just be around people that are going through the same things you're going through and really care and really like the ESOP and want it to succeed not only for themselves but for the people that are also part of the ESOP community. One thing I've even noticed being a part of the chapter and the events that I've gone to is everybody is after that same thing of like, how can we help everybody improve? How can we help each other out? And it's not, I think as Scott had said, people aren't like, oh, it's mine, I got to hold on to it, I got to keep it to myself because I don't want somebody to steal it. We want everybody to engage and to help each other out. And I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. I think a perfect note to end on. Well, I can't thank you folks enough for joining me today to chat about the national conference and kind of recap the great experiences that we all got to have there. And so, of course, if those listening want to learn more about any of the ESOP Association events, don't hesitate to head on to the ESOP Association website. There's several upcoming events, there's free webinars, there's something for everybody. So if you want to learn about advocacy, that's coming up, I know. If you want to prep for ownership month, there's a free webinar coming up about that. Chris is nodding her head as I'm repeating everything from her programming agenda. And of course, we are going to be having the Midwest Regional Conference coming up here in the fall. So be on the lookout for that. Hope to see many chapter faces there as we head to that in September. And of course, we'll be doing a recap following that event with folks in attendance. So be on the lookout for that podcast coming in the fall. So we appreciate everybody listening and tuning in to the chapter chat. And we will see you next time.